Bhagwan Shri Yogi Ramsuratkumar ki Jai. Sarvam Yogi Ramsuratkumar Arpanastu. It is by His grace everything happens, and so whatever happens is grace. This is what Bhagwan gave us to understand about the so-called life. When you look around, everything becomes a wonder. If you ever stop to think, and if you care to see, you understand the beauty, the dignity, and the divinity in everything around. How could such structure be made? How could this come alive? How could this grow? And finally disappear? Everything seems to be a great wonder. The whole creation is there only to create the sense of wonder. And when your mind is caught in this wonderful delight, you begin to think about the Creator. Your thought begins to go beyond the beauty of this creation. You go to the beauty of the divine behind it all. What intelligence, what creativity. Every little thing that you see, right from insect, structure of the leaves, the varieties, such beautiful flowers, different colors, different shapes and sizes, the intricacy, the sophistication of the animals created. Just think of the ocean. How vast, how deep, housing such varieties of lives in it. Think of the mountain. Think of the sky. Think of the fire. What exactly is fire? How wonderful it is. Who created this fire? And think of the wonder that is water. Everything, if you care to stop and see the way it should be seen, the heart blossoms. And tastes the divinity behind all these appearances. And the divine takes over. The whole creation is there only to remind us of the Creator behind. I do not mean Brahma, the Creator. I mean the Supreme Intelligence that creates, sustains, destroys, only to recreate. Such beauty, such sophistication, such wonder. Sometimes the heart is filled with ecstatic waves, and sometimes there's a stream of tears. Something inside moves beyond all reason, beyond all appearances. Something melts into a river of tears for no reason. It's just a movement in the infinity. Now this wonder, this divinity behind the entire creation has taken the form of our Guru. It has come down because of its compassion. And it has immense power. It leaves all that bliss behind just to be with us, just to uplift us to its state of Ananda. We wallow in misery because we get involved with appearances. We get involved with the creation. We get involved with the Creator instead of going to the Creator behind the creation. So the Guru comes down to point out this appearance, this beauty that you admire so much, points to the beauty of the divine behind. And then you begin to look upon the Guru who points it out to you, and the wisdom dawns that it is Guru himself, the divinity of the Guru, is that supreme power which takes pity on us, the ignorant fools that we are, and slowly, just as a cloth is removed, when a cloth gets caught on a bush of thorns, it has to be very carefully removed from the thorns. This is what a Guru does. Our heart, our mind, our intellect, they are spread over what is seen, the bush of thorns. The Guru comes there and very carefully removes this cloth, retrieves it from the sharp tips of the thorns. This is what we call grace, as we understand it, in a very concrete form. We have been having glimpses of this grace, a few drops from the ocean of grace, that is Yogi Ramsuratkumar. Time and again, we get a revelation of this grace, how it helps, guides, and protects, and then take us forward to greater and greater wisdom, and finally to the great beyond. Now today also we shall see how the grace expresses itself in different ways, in different circumstances, to different people with different mindsets. One Deivanai Subbiah, a devotee of Bhagwan, Sri Yogi Ramsuratkumar, did not know much about the Yogi Bhagwan, but when she came to know, she was caught in the net of compassion of the divine. And it started to work in the depths of her heart. She was carried away by the beauty of the name, and she started to repeat. She started to write. She went over to Kaani Madam. There was some function there, and people were chanting and chanting and chanting. There were many people speaking on the divinity of Bhagwan, on His grace, and the glory of His name. She was totally drowned, drunk with the beauty of it all. Her heart was filled with Bhagwan. It was late in the night, and when she came down to this world, she felt the nature's call, and she came out of the building. It was so dark. It was nearing midnight. There was no light at all. There was nobody either. She'd come out, but she did not know where to go and how to go. So her heart cried out, Yogi Ramsuratkumar, how will I find this restroom? It is so dark and frightening. I have no one to come with me. Please help, Yogi Ramsuratkumar. When the heart cried out, she would have taken about 4 steps. And suddenly, her eyes were caught by a figure at a distance. It was so huge. It had a shawl, and it had a country fan and a coconut shell, and there was a turban sitting like a diadem on the head of this figure. She was absolutely fascinated. She just looked on. He saw him at a distance, and he was so huge. And then she took 2 more steps, and suddenly the room was there that she came looking for. And she thought Bhagwan was there, and she would come back to him, and she ran into the room. When she came out, the figure was gone. But enough to say, in the darkness of the night, there was nobody around, and she was in a crisis. She had to attend to this nature's call. But you see, it drove her to the vision of Bhagwan. What could we say? Anything could lead to the divine. The moment of crisis, the heart reaches out. It cries out. And then the divine hears and appears. It's a very small, ordinary event, but you see how it ended. We try to see God in pujas, in the homas, but God truly lives in the cries of the soul. When the soul cries out longing, that is the greatest puja. It invokes immediately the vision of the divine. A huge gift of grace. She goes on to say another event, which again sounds very ordinary from the worldly point of view, but every circumstance that's created by the divine to reach out to Him is very special. Because in the end, the soul experiences the touch of grace, the touch of the divinity. And it's a joy, it's a moment of joy and celebration. She and her husband were returning after attending a function. They came by bus and got on at Aruppukottai bus stand. When they began to walk towards the house, it was after 8 o'clock in the night. Suddenly her husband found out his gold chain, gold bangle, a wristband that he was wearing was missing, 2.5 sovereigns in all. And then suddenly it struck him that he should run back to see, to search for it. So he told his wife to go ahead. Both of them were chanting the name. Deivanai reached home and sat before Bhagwan's photo, and with folded hands she started to chant the name desperately, because at their level of finance, they could not afford to lose it. She chanted and chanted and chanted, and her husband ran to the place where the bus was stopping. He boarded the bus, looked for it, and he found it under the seat. Nobody had touched it even. The bus did not go either. Who held the bus there? And how is that nobody even looked for the chain, nobody even touched it? It was there for all the people to see. At every level, even in this ordinary event of losing something, you see how the grace works, the touch of the divine. It takes the circumstances like this. You feel that you have lost something valuable, and then you reach out to the most valuable, the grace, the touch of the divine, and how it rushes to rescue, to help you, above all, to touch your depths with its sweetness, with its kindness. So all through these leelas, do not think they are worldly, ordinary. Every leela performed by grace, performed by the divine, is special because it's filled with this grace. And this grace is incomparable. It is the supreme divine. there is a devotee by name Bhama, very much devoted to Bhagwan, though she could not come often because Tuticorin is the tip of the South India. To travel all the way from this place to Tiruvannamalai, it takes quite some time and money. But she had the grace of the name. She was already introduced to the name, and she started to chant. And soon she was caught in the charm of the name. But then the circumstances at home, she had 3 sons. She was a mother and she had 3 sons. And her son's marriage was getting delayed. All the 3 had to be married, but the eldest of the 3, it was very difficult to find a girl for him. And finally, when she approached an astrologer, her own brother, who was very good at it, he looked at the horoscope and said, "Look, it cannot happen easily to him. You have to do a lot of atonements. There are karmas, very bad karmas, coming in the way. And they require atonement. So you have to start to atone for all this." Generally, the scriptures prescribe certain atonements when the karmas keep blocking the way. But she did not know what to do, how to go about it. And also, it would cost a lot of money. There was a Ganesha Temple next to her house. She went there. She thought of Bhagwan, Yogi Ramsuratkumar. She worshipped him there. And then sat in one place, closed her eyes and began to chant Yogi Ramsuratkumar. And all the time she was thinking, "Bhagwan, I do not know what kind of atonement I should do. I do not know the rituals. I do not know anyone who can do it for me, nor can we afford that kind of money. Please show me a way. I want my sons to get married, but I am unable to do it, and they are getting old. You have to help me out." Her heart was crying out for help, for rescue. And suddenly she heard the pujari talking to somebody there. She had her eyes closed and she was repeating the name and appealing to Yogi Ramsuratkumar Bhagwan. Now the pujari was telling somebody, "Don't worry, your sons are not getting married. There are certain atonements to be done." And then he started to describe. He said, "You have a guru. What God can be greater than the guru? One's guru is the greatest God. All gods are contained in him. So what you do, you have your guru's photo, you take a plate and spread the vibhuti there and put some camphor, light it, chanting your Gurudev's name 108 times. Offer something as food, and then wave this camphor, the lighted camphor, before the deity, chanting his name 108 times. Once the arati is over, you can remove all the vibhutis there and spread it in the corners of the house, everywhere in the rooms, the entire house, and that would clear out some unwanted elements there. And then he said, you can take a pot with water and then invoke the goddess Lalita in that. And then you know this Lalita Sahasranamam, the 1000 names of the Divine Mother. You can do the puja the way it is prescribed. You can do this Lalita Sahasranama and Trishakti, and then do some archana, either with flowers or with kumkum, the red powder. And you can end up the whole puja with arati. You can put on some new silk cloth on the Divine Mother. Do this puja for one mandal. 48 days. You must continue to do the puja, but one thing, it should not be blocked. It should not be interrupted. You must see to it that you do it all these 48 days continuously. That's very important. You go ahead and you see how all the sons get married. So when she heard a whole lot of instructions from the pujari, she opened her eyes and she looked for him, and there was nobody around. And the pujari was right inside the sanctum doing some work. She immediately ran to him and said, Swami, I heard whatever you said to somebody who was here, some visitor. I heard all the details. I will try to do that. The pujari said, what? Nobody came here, nor did I ever talk anything. What are you saying? I never gave instructions to anybody. And suddenly she knew it was Bhagwan. She was chanting his name, and he was giving instructions in the voice of the pujari. Not outside, but inside her. What a gift of grace. Immediately she went home. She did the puja to the Guru. And she had a pot filled with water, invoked the Divine Mother there. She went ahead with Sahasranama after that. And she put on a new silk cloth on the deity, made some offering and did the arati. And the pujari also had told her that you have the picture of Hanuman given by Paramacharya. You start to put kumkum. Start from the beginning of the tail of Hanuman. Go up to the tip of the tail. These 48 days, this mandala, you complete that. So she lighted a lamp and she invoked the presence of the Divine Mother, and then also she Hanuman by doing this kumkum on the tail of Hanuman. She did all that was instructed. Some 20 days passed, uninterrupted. By the time some girl, a proposal had come for her eldest son, and those people, surprisingly, those people agreed to everything. They were happy to fix the marriage. So it went, every step was moving fast. They prepared the wedding invitation also. So after a few days, the mandala was still not over, the puja was going on. In the meantime, all these things happened, and she kept the wedding invitation also in front of the Divine Mother. Now one day after the puja was over, she came and sat in a chair, and suddenly something she felt. There was some disturbance in the mind, and soon she sensed the burning of something. She got the smell. She called her daughter-in-law and asked her whether something was burning in the kitchen. That lady said, "No, it must be in the puja room. You go see there." And she ran immediately, and to her horror, she found the wedding invitation was getting burnt. She could not understand what was happening because the lamp was a little distance away. How could the two connect? And what was more, she had put some cloth, a new silk cloth, on the deity, the Divine Mother, and that was also burning. She was terrified, and immediately she put out the fire and replaced everything. She removed all this new clothes on the Divine Mother and replaced it by another set. And then the invitation also was removed immediately from the place. She asked for one more invitation, and then she kept it there. So it was at that time her son, whose marriage was fixed, was driving a bike, and he was going on the road. A bicycle was coming in front of him, carrying two boys. The boys were coming towards this bike, and there was a heap of something, a raised platform, and somehow the cycle climbed over that, and the boy who was seated behind the cyclist, he jumped and ran away. So that unsettled the cyclist. The cycle began to go in zigzag fashion. It came and hit the bike, and the boy, the cyclist boy, was caught in the wheel of the bike. And he fell dead. He died on the spot. Now, Bhama's son was horrified. What has happened? Within seconds, it was out of control. He, for no fault of his, these people came across his bike. And everything happened in a fraction of a second. Before he knew, there was death on the spot. And he knew soon there would be people around, and they would not listen to reason. The first thing that they would do was start beating him. They would beat him up to death. He was so frightened, terrified, he started to run from the place. He ran and ran for 6 kilometers and reached the police station there and surrendered, saying, "Look, this is what happened. It was no fault of mine at all. The cyclist boy came and hit me and died on the spot. But I was so scared to be on the spot because of those crowds. The mob would do anything to me. So I came." And he surrendered to the inspector there in the station. And they knew him, they knew the family, and they understood what happened. And they also came to know that this son, this man, was getting married in 10 days. So they paid. On bail, he came out. And Bhama says, despite all this, there was one particular incident that happened when she replaced the burning invitation by a new one and the burnt cloth by a new one, and then was very, very disturbed and sat there with the eyes closed and started to chant Yogi Ramsuratkumar Nama desperately. Yogi Ramsuratkumar, what is happening? What will I do if you don't come to my rescue? Please help. She kept on crying out to Bhagwan, and suddenly she felt the presence of Bhagwan by her side. And before that, the smell of cigarette. And what was more, she heard the voice of Bhagwan saying, for the marriage she had made 2 Mangal Sutra, the holy thread, to be tied around the neck of the bride by the bridegroom. She had made 2, one for the Divine Mother and one for her daughter-in-law to be. Now here she heard Bhagwan's voice saying, hurry, hurry, you take the one, the holy thread that you made for the Divine Mother, you put it on her immediately. The voice spoke very urgently, and she woke up to find nobody around. And immediately she ran and then got the new one, the new holy thread, the golden holy thread, and she put it on the Divine Mother. And then that was the moment the incident had happened, and her son escaped from the mob, surrendered at the police station, and soon he was back home. And what is more, despite all these difficulties, all these negativities, 10 days after her son's marriage took place in a very grand manner, they told everything to the bride's party, what happened, how everything happened. They did not hide anything, but to her surprise, the bride's people accepted everything without objecting, and the marriage took place in a grand manner to the delight of Bhama and her people. We talk about life, we have to live our lives with all its string of karmas, with all its joys and sorrows, and every moment, in every situation, we face difficulties, impossible situations, impossible people, interaction with impossible people and impossible situations, where we require extraordinary mental strength to face the challenges. We need the touch of grace. Just see how grace helped her through all these difficulties. And she said, within a few months, her next son also got married, and after 1 year, the third one also. After that, it was easy riding through situations, and Bhagwan's grace helped her achieve all that she wanted to achieve. All is only Nama, the glory of Nama. Now why we have to go through these Leelas? Because there are devotees and devotees who face such challenges in life. And when you face a challenge, you do not think it's worldly because your entire being is involved. And it cries out for grace, escape from a situation. You are cornered by the fate, by a series of circumstances. You feel trapped, unable to come out, and know only grace can provide relief. And that grace is our Gurudev, Bhagwan, Sri Yogi Ramsuratkumar. He lives in his name. He lives completely in His name, in all His fullness, in all His glory, in all His power. So let us appeal to His Murti here and submit our today's prayers. Bhagwan, today the world is facing an impossible situation. It's caught in the trap of collective karma and is paying dearly for it. Who can come to our relief except you? We invoke, we appeal to you for your immediate divine intervention to free this world from the clutches of this terrible virus and to bring back normalcy to the world. We pray with faith. We surrender this problem at your feet and pray with faith. This faith is very difficult to come across, very difficult to have. Ramakrishna Paramhansa says, faith comes only in the last moment. And with faith comes surrender. So this faith and surrender, very difficult. They say, Ramakrishna Paramhansa says, God will even give mukti, but very difficult to get bhakti. Very difficult to develop this faith in God. So we seek your blessings, even for developing this faith. Bhagwan, kindly remove the panic from the hearts of people, arrest the spread of the disease, and enter this vaccine and reach out to people who deserve it, and kill this virus instantly and its variant also. And all those brave soldiers who are fighting the disease in the field at the very risk of their lives, please give them protection. We need a huge boost to economy. We seek your blessings for that. Above all, we beg you to give us that faith, that unshakable faith that could take us near you, will make our invocation of grace successful. Give us constant remembrance of your name